I just attended a training in which we learned some light search and rescue skills. One of the techniques they taught us was cribbing. Cribbing is when you use items to stabilize a load as you leverage it with another tool up to a certain point in which you can get whatever or whoever is trapped underneath of it out.
I'm Michael Archuleta, and these are the things we need to know. Like badass skills and tactics? Subscribe and hit the bell.
You want to make whatever you're trying to lift as stable as possible by keeping yourself safe. So I've seen it in a bunch of these videos and practicality, but like I said, I try and be as safe as I can, which means me never putting my hands under whatever it is. These can be your hands. You can move wood around with these. You can push wood with these, That way your hands aren't under there. There's open box cribbing, which is probably the most likely one you're going to use. One, it takes the least amount of material, and it's pretty easy to do. So just like you've seen in all the videos, right? You guys can see. At the end of it, it's basically going to end up like that, right? That's our open box cribbing. It's open in the middle. We have 4 points. If there was a perfectly flat thing on here, right, that was holding it, so we have 4 points going straight down into the ground. All of our strength from these cribs is going to be going straight down through these 2 pieces of 2x4, 4x4, whatever it is, into the ground. At each one of these points that's going straight down, this is 4,000 pounds. This is 4,000 pounds. This is 4,000 pounds. This is 4,000 pounds. Right? So if just these 2 are touching whatever we're touching, that will hold 8,000 pounds. Right? So that's an open box crib. And again, like what I was saying, when you're putting your pieces of wood in, communication's key. Lift, get ready to put it in, and then let's see. I'll try and do it this way so you guys can see. So stage your next pieces of wood that are going to go in outside of where you're going to put them in, and then how do you mind lifting that one? So when they say lift, okay, lift. Now you can push them in, right? And then you can go back down, with your communication. So I think the big things we're going to need out there is, okay, crib team ready, because you're going to have crib team, right, on each side. Okay, and then whoever's the team lead, okay, crib team's ready, lifter ready, yes. Okay, lift, and then stick it, which we say stick it because that means you're putting the block in as close as you can to, support that weight. Does that make sense to everybody? Mm-hmm. And that's where wedges will come in handy, if they're there. Like I said, we have everything perfectly laid out, perfectly cut, and 18-inch, so perfect scenario, you're going to use these just to take up that extra space, just like you guys saw in there. So the most basic type of crib you can get, open box, right? And you just keep continuing to do that. If you don't have the room and you can only get your box this big, nothing changes, right? We still have the points that are going straight down. If we can only get one corner of our open box, if we do your classic, perfect, everything normal, and we only get 1 point, we still have 4,000 pounds, right? So stability is big. That's why you want to do equal on each side. That's why they say lift an inch, crib an inch. So then you're not lifting the whole thing up and then it just come back down. If it does come down, it's coming down on something solid.
Always want to have a little bit of overlap with the tails of your pieces here. And now typically when we are lifting, we are just going to have that one contact point. And that's why keeping a wedge in there to minimize as we're lifting, if you're trying to wait to get maybe a wedge over there. If you're lifting and you're lifting, waiting for this to get up high enough to where you can stick a 4x4 in, that's a big gap that we've left there. So as the lift is occurring, as it's slowly going up, this wedge is going in as you're lifting. As soon as it gets high enough, taking up that space, you knock that out of the way and then get your next piece in.
Okay, so that is one type of cribbing. With cribbing, it's super dynamic. I mean, there's so many things that you can do. He went over the open box. The next one that I'm going to go over is called cross tie, and that's basically when you grab 3 of them. Okay, there you go. And just like Captain Larson said, you want that little bit of overlap, right? now you got 3 underneath and then 3 on top. And the reason why we do this, can anyone tell me why they think we would switch to this type of cribbing versus the open box?
A heavier load.
Heavier load, right? So if you have a heavier load and maybe you need to support something a lot heavier, you have a lot more points of contact. So now you're getting a lot more strength. And so that's why you go to something like this. Now with this, do you guys know how much strength you're going to get from each point of contact? Because we just switched from these 2x4s,
4x4s
to now 4x4s.
So we don't take any.
You're going to get about 6,000
Same.
pounds from each point of contact. Okay? Do you guys?
So you
Are you-
went from 4 to 6.
Yes, because it's a bigger piece of wood. Now you're going with 4x4 versus 2x4. Okay? Is anybody know how you get that strength of 6,000 pounds? Okay, I'll just briefly cover it. I won't get into too much depth, but this piece of wood here is 4x4, but technically it's actually 3.5 by 3.5. Okay, when it gets pressure treated, there's different types of strength that you get from it. You can get quite a bit of strength when you go along the grain of the wood. When you go perpendicular to it, you get about 500 pounds of strength. Okay, so you take the amount of surface area that you're using. So you're saying about, I'd say 3.5 by 3.5, and then you multiply that by the 500 pounds of strength per square inch, and that gives you your 6,000 pounds. Okay, that's kind of where they get that number from. It's from the way this piece of wood was pressure treated, and then how much surface area you had, which is 3.5 by 3.5. So that's why you switch from this type of cribbing. If you have something a lot larger, kind of like what Josh was saying, this is a lot bigger, so you might have to lift a lot more. You're not going to lift the 4 inches. You're going to only lift an inch, right? But that's where you can maybe put this smaller piece of wood in there, just so that you can fit this in there. And then once you get to that 4, you can maybe switch this out and insert your other 4x4 piece of wood, okay? Do you guys know why you use a wedge?
Because it's at an angle.
Okay.
Well,
Take up smaller space in the.
Right.
Exactly. So maybe, so let's say we lift, let's say we lift an inch, and I can't get this in there. Or maybe I get this in there, but we still have about half an inch in there. Remember, you never want that load to dry at all. So that's where this comes in. So you can take that gap. So you insert your wedges. Now if something happens when you're lifting, it's never going to drop. Okay? You lift up a little bit more, maybe you insert your wedges in a little bit more to take up that gap. Okay? Now you've lifted up enough to where you can take this wedge out, maybe take this 2x4 out and insert the 4x4.
What's a scenario where you would not be able to get that extra half an inch that you need to fit either this in or a 4x4 in?
You could be hitting something above it. Yeah.
Right? You've maxed out your fulcrum. Our fulcrum's maxed out, it's not going anymore, I can't even fit this in. Right? So instead of lose what we just gained, we're gonna try and use a 4x4 or something else that will fit, and then the load can rest, we can reset our fulcrum and then get another bite and continue up, right? The whole idea behind cribbing is not losing what you've gained.
And then the biggest thing is, even though I'm using these pieces of wood and I have a lot more strength from this, remember, it's only on the points of contact that load is on. So even though you're getting way more, if I'm only using 3 points of contact, that's
how much load you
exactly 18,000, yeah.
One other thing with that, if we're only using these 3 points of contact, why are we building this side up?
Stability.
Right?
Stability. So the other thing too is, whenever you're building your box, you never want to go any higher than 2 pieces of wood in the same direction. You always want to. Okay. Exactly. It's a lot more stable that way. Want to go over the next one?
So all the same things applied, just like Tony was talking about here. But the next one's called the solid box. Can you guess why?
They're all pushed together.
Right? Does that make sense to everybody?
More surface area.
And again, these are all just practicality, what we need to do, it doesn't need to be, it needs to be stable and functional. It doesn't need to be like perfectly pretty. Does that make sense? So, So that's the solid box, that's the cross tie, and the open box. Pretty much the same principles apply to all of them. Again, these are going to be you can do everything you need with these. You can move pieces of wood, you can pick pieces of wood up, you can push them, you can, so you're not with your hand under that really heavy thing that we're trying to pick up. That's as far as safety goes today, when we're doing this out there, let's try and not get our hands under anything. That's pretty much our rule number one when we're doing cribbing and lifting stuff for us. So it could probably be a good idea for you guys as well.
Make sure you're wearing your gloves because you can easily get a splinter with this. Goggles. Pretty good.
Done, Greg?
Perfect.
Any quick questions about that? I promise it'll make a lot more sense once you start doing it.
It seems like the wedge is the most specialized piece that maybe you wouldn't have on hand. Do you have an example of something else that would be around us?
Whatever you could use, right? Like, if you find different sizes of wood, if you find something that's wedge-like, I wouldn't use something rubber, I wouldn't use, something that's sturdy and hardy that you can use, right? Again, on that same premise, if you found a piece of metal that's shaped like a wedge, is it going to be super slippery? Is that metal on metal? It's going to slip off. So just common sense with that stuff is just what's going to be the safest route here. If you can't find a wedge, you don't have any of these, and all you have is 4x4s, then you're going to have to do the best you can, right? This is all going to be real life stuff. It's not going to be perfect setup for rescue systems class that we're taking. So you're going to have to use what you have there. You're not walking around with 16 4x4s in your backpack. I hope not. Maybe you can. I'm not saying you can't, but any other quick questions on that? And then Cat Marshall can finish up and we can hopefully get outside soon. Good? All right.
If you've ever done this in a real life situation, tell me in the comments below. I'd love to know. And if you have any questions about cribbing, ask them in the comments as well. Hit that like button, and I'd love to be a part of your journey, so subscribe. And until next time, stay badass.